And with us this morning is the new Executive Director of the ACLU in Tennessee. Is one of her, or him, it may be men in every state in the country, and you're one of them, and you're replacing Hetty Weinberg after 37 years. Kathy Sinback's with us. So, yeah, I see that you guys have, you know, a voting rights toolkit and others. What do you think can be done to improve voter turnout? And here we are in the middle of midterms, and, you know, I hope early voting, which ends, as you said, tomorrow, they have a good turnout, but you know, some of the early numbers aren't all that good already.
Yeah, I think it's important to encourage the younger people in your life to vote. I mean, encourage everyone, but we're hearing from college students who are passionate about issues, but they don't feel like their vote matters.
Yeah, they just feel beaten down and like, what the heck? And it's a tough world for college grads right now.
It really is, but it's so essential to our democracy for people to be involved, regardless of who they're voting for. We have to make sure that people know where to vote, how to vote. We need to keep making the voting laws. I really call on legislators to make our voting laws more accessible, more amenable to people being able to easily vote. We've seen a lot of, there are often laws introduced every year to make voting easier, and they always get shot down, and the laws to make voting harder pass. And so we need to stop that in Tennessee.
Well, it's because there's all this garbage on, you know, voting impropriety, of course, where there's no evidence of that whatsoever. So it's like, well, let's make sure that the votes are correct. It's crap. People don't like it when they lose, so they like to pretend as though, well, it was unfair. Give me the cases. You know, I mean, that's the bottom line on it, and there's not. And so they keep not making. They think by making it easier, it will make it easier to pull a fast one voting.
Well, I think the ACLU, we support measures to make voting more secure.
Sure.
That's not a question. I mean, the question is, we need to make it where people can actually get to the polls, where people who aren't able to can file an absentee ballot in a reasonable way. We need to make it where people understand their voting rights. Our high school students, a lot of them just feel so alienated from the process, and there was a bill last year that would have made it easier for kids to learn about voting and to register to vote in their high schools, and that failed. It had no fiscal note. And
that's stunning.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
Yeah, but every single bill to make voting easier over the past few years has failed.
Because they all think by making it easier, they're going to be attacked on making it easier to cheat, which is just pure crap. It's pure crap. All right, so good luck with that.
Thank you.
No ballot barriers at the ballot box is one good move. As far as another issue that you guys have talked about, and I've done stories on this, how many people are locked up and can't make bond?
We have thousands and thousands in Tennessee. We just had a huge victory in Memphis on a bail issue. We were able to, the ACLU was able to work with some partners in Memphis to help create a process, some due process for people to have a really a very fair bail hearing. And
that it would be set at a fair amount, I guess, so people understand the issue. You could be accused of a crime, and it's something where you're getting a bond, which is to ensure that you show up when the time comes, when your day in court comes, and you post that bond. But if you don't have the money to post the bond, you just sit there in jail, keeping in mind you're still innocent until proven guilty. And there's people there, and again, these are not murderers. The murderer bond, that's $1 million, yeah, stay locked up. But usually what? They're lesser crimes.
Absolutely. When I was a public defender in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember having a lot of clients who couldn't get out because they didn't have $50. They didn't have $100.
And we're talking what type of crimes?
Just misdemeanors.
Misdemeanor, maybe simple possession. I don't know what else, but yeah, misdemeanors. That says it all. It's minor crimes. They're not violent felons, and they're sitting there behind bars, which, by the way, I don't like, because as a taxpayer, you know how expensive it is to keep someone locked up. So even if you're like, well, the heck with them, they committed a crime, lock them up. You know what? I'm sick and tired of paying for misdemeanors to serve time. While how much do you pay a day to give them 3 meals and a cot?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we have the presumption of innocence. People are innocent until proven guilty. And you have a lot of people who are sitting in jail unable to really defend themselves because they're unable to, if they had the money, they could get out, but they don't. And so they're sitting there with less of an opportunity to have justice in their cases.
So what is the solution to that then? You said in the Memphis case, is it that we need to have magistrates that set more reasonable bonds, or is it something where maybe something's passed where certain crimes you don't really have to have a bond. You're released on your own recognizance.
I think the more people can be released on their own recognizance, the better, but also a fair determination where the burden is on the state to show why a bond should be higher, as opposed to the burden being on the defendant. So the Memphis, the new process in Memphis requires bonds to be set reasonably low, and then if they're going to be higher, the burden is on the state, and then the determinations are fair. There's someone actually looking at that determination in a quick manner, instead of someone just sitting there and no one taking the time to look at it. And those decisions are being made in a much more transparent way, and people have the opportunity to get out of jail.
It's interesting, you know. I know a few magistrates in some of the smaller counties, and these are not people really who came from law enforcement backgrounds. They're intelligent, good people, but they go in there and they get a little bit of training for a few days, and there's a list and a guideline crime bond, and it's left to their discretion. Incredible power that they really have to set bonds, and people come before them every day in the court there, and the magistrate sets the bond for them, usually based on, you're charged with simple possession, what'd you have, and depending on it, you know, and it can be kind of willy-nilly sometimes, or if it happens to be a crime that maybe doesn't sit well with them for some reason. More often than not, you hear the public complaining about that bond is too low, but that's usually on occasion for sex offenders or rape cases, things like this, and I understand those need to be set high. But some of these lesser ones, where you're just sitting around, doesn't make sense. So that needs to be reformed. Let's take a call from Stacy. Stacy, good morning. Hi, Stacy.
Morning, Nick.
Hey.
I wanted to let Kathy know that I was a member of the ACLU for many years, and unlike most people who don't renew their membership, I didn't fail to renew because I disagreed with a stand that the organization took on one of the major issues. I quit because I had my own issue, and I didn't feel like I was getting that the ACLU, Tennessee, was responsive. And when I talked to Hetty Weinberg, I assumed she was an attorney until she told me she was not. And I think maybe it was kind of complex. I'd like to maybe resubmit my issue. I was looking on the website, and I noticed that the application seems to be a little bit more involved than it was before, which is great, because one of the frustrations I had when I filled it out before was that it was kind of like Twitter. You know, if you can't summarize what the situation is in a tweet, you really don't have any choice. And but I did the best I could at the time, but also the fact that nobody ever gets back to you to discuss it further. And in my case, it's definitely complex, and it definitely would be something that would have to, I'd like to get some feedback on, because if there are other alternatives that maybe I should be pursuing, then I'd like to do that. But I've really been all over with it, and I do feel like it fits.
I'm so glad. I didn't even realize that. So go ahead and address her issue, because I was kind of wondering, how do people maybe who have issues like Stacy reach out to the ACLU, and do you actually get involved with them?
Absolutely. So thank you, Stacy, for your call, and I'm sorry you had a difficult experience. I hope you will resubmit your issue. Our intake form is online, and we have actually a larger legal staff than we've had in a while, and are doing a lot of legal work right now. Something that is really important to know is that the ACLU doesn't just take every case that has merit that is a civil liberties involved case. We're not a big firm with a lot of lawyers that takes those kinds of that takes just every civil liberties case. We do basically impact litigation. So we are looking at taking cases that are going to help us change the law in Tennessee. So we usually take representative cases on an issue. So if there's a specific type of First Amendment issue that's happening across the state, we will try to find the best representative of that case, of that type of issue, and take that case. That being said, we do end up sometimes taking other cases, but we do a lot of referrals out to other lawyers. We have a lot of cooperating attorneys across the state who are interested in helping people with their daily civil liberties issues, and we will definitely take a look at your issue, and I look forward to having you submit it to us, and we'll take a look at it.
Again, it's not like you're pro bono lawyers who just take take on people's legal cases. And I think Stacey would probably say hers has a civil liberty. First of all, there has to be some kind of civil liberties affiliation, that there's a violation here, a constitutional issue. And then now, depending on how specific it is, it may be something you take on, or maybe it's not, as you said, what did you call it? What kind of litigation do you do?
Impact.
Impact. It's not impacting as many people. It may be more specific to her, but you can go onto the website and fill out if you're feeling as though you've been, is it like discriminated against?
It's any civil liberties or civil rights issues. We get a lot of people who are maybe trying to do something, maybe a performance, and they're being told that they can't do it. We've had some of those lately. We have criminal legal issues that people send us sometimes from prisons in Tennessee. We get issues of all sorts of discrimination on different issues, or anytime somebody's freedoms are being interrupted, a lot of times they'll contact the ACLU.
Okay, interesting. I'm glad Stacey made that call. I hope she does reach back out. Another big issue here in Middle Tennessee, and I think nationwide, is the police accountability. Okay, there are so many very good law enforcement officers, but we know there's issues. We've had some here in Nashville. And I know the ACLU has been very strong in the fight to end things like racial profiling and along those lines. What else? I mean, where does the ACLU stand of late on this? Of course, there's all kinds of new developments like body cameras, police body cameras that can really provide answers. What do you think?
So the ACLU not only represents and supports freedom of speech, but also privacy. And so we do take a really close look at government intrusion into our privacies. And so we support things like the CCOPS type of legislation, which makes sure that if we're going to have any sort of surveillance technology, that the community should be able to review that technology, and that it should go through the city council, and there should be a review process so that we know what's happening, so we don't just have new technology watching us without knowing what the purpose is and who's going to be using it. The ACLU is not against all surveillance technology, but we definitely want to make sure that it's being done in a way that's responsible and that balances out those privacy issues with the needs of law enforcement.
How do you think it's worked out so far? I mean, you've been in the community, you've been over with the judge, you've seen in some high-profile cases where the video has been released to Metro, from Metro. Donnie Aaron does these kind of fancy, like, you know, he provides the video with a narration front and back. There was some little debate at a while there that parts of it may have been edited. It had to do with some audio. They say they're not going to do that anymore. They have to be transparent and release it all. I mean, at first I had my doubts, but I mean, I think video of this is a good thing. I don't see a downside. Now, I think it doesn't always tell the whole story, but I mean, having video is better than not having it, and I think that's 100% of the time.
I absolutely agree. When I represented the police department here at Metro, I would sit in on use of force board meetings and watch video and look at, you know, maps and things related to use of force incidents, and I always was impressed with how different it is when you're looking at the full scenario as opposed to just hearing a clip about something on the news. That if you can actually see more and understand more, then you don't just kind of jump to conclusions that oh, the police were wrong or the police were right. You know, which people tend to like fall in one of those two categories. There's so much nuance, and with body cameras, you're able to really see what was the officer facing, and what did it, you know, what was the person on the other side, what was their experience, and you can really assess those interactions in a much better way, and then try to pinpoint where are the problem areas and address those, as opposed to just having this narrative of the police are always wrong or the police are always right, which does not help anyone.
Yeah, it doesn't, and usually it's not fair to say completely one way or the other anyway. There's a lot of gray area. We'll take a break, be back with our final segment with our guest with the ACLU right after this.